Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Hare Krishna, I'm Rajarsi Dasa. Welcome to Hare Krishna today. On today's program, we have a special guest with us, His Grace Akrura Das. Akrura Prabhu, welcome to the program.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much.
Akrura Prabhu is originally from Delhi, India, but now residing in Vancouver, West Canada. So we're going to ask Akrura Prabhu. He's a teacher of Bhagavad Gita, and soon it will be Bhagavad Gita Jayanti. So we'd like to hear from him about his communication of Bhagavad Gita to people in general. So Akrura Prabhu, perhaps you can tell us, how do you present Bhagavad Gita if you're dealing with new people, people who may not be so familiar? How do you go about presenting the message of Bhagavad Gita to them?
For people who do not know a whole lot about Bhagavad Gita, first thing they need to understand that the Bhagavad Gita is spoken at the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where the two armies are just about to go into a fight. The fight is regarding religion and irreligion. The Bhagavad Gita informs about the duty to the listener. So what happens is, Arjuna, who's supposed to be fighting the battle, is confused at the beginning of the battle as to how and why should he be fighting a battle against his own. And Krishna, who is doing the work of riding the chariot or guiding the chariot for him, is there available on hand to answer his questions or his queries. So first of all, Arjun thinks that there is no point in fighting my own relatives, because what am I going to gain? Even if I gain the whole kingdom of the whole planet.
Before you continue, sometimes people introduce or they bring up the point that Arjuna actually represents people in general. They say, well, Krishna is using him to give a message to all of us. Could you focus as to whether that is so and how relevant is that?
The answer is yes and no. Krishna is actually giving the message for everyone through Arjuna. Arjuna is a spirit soul just like us, and the message that is for him is good for us. At the same time, some people like to tell you that Arjuna never existed. The battlefield of Kurukshetra is not there. This battle never took place.
It's
This
mythology.
is the whole thing is a mythology, and the whole thing is theory only. Of course, it's theory, but it is actual historical fact. The whole Bhagavad Gita is full of facts. The facts are true today as they were 5,000 years ago, and they will be true another 5,000 years later. Exactly the same. The whole Bhagavad Gita is full of absolute truth. The absolute truth does not change. You tell me one book that was very relevant 200 years ago and is very relevant today. All the information that we read in all the other regular books, the information changes so much during the course of time that the relevancy is lost. Whereas the Bhagavad Gita, because it is actually giving the absolute message and it is coming from absolute truth. These things, they don't change. The duty of a human being does not change. The nature of a human being does not change. The existence of a human being in terms of the soul does not change. So first thing is why the message given in the Bhagavad Gita is so relevant today for everyone, although we are not in a battlefield. But really, the truth of the matter is, there is always a battle going on inside everyone's mind.
Interesting.
The battle is the same as the battle of Kurukshetra. The battle of Kurukshetra is between religion and irreligion, or you can say good and bad. So always there is a battle in our own mind that is going on between good and bad. So the more information, the more confidence we have on good, the more likely we're going to follow good. Like most sinners, for a lack of better word, use sinners, they know they're sinning when they're sinning. But at the same time, they are sinning. Reason they're sinning is inside their heart, inside their mind, that battle of good and bad going on. The bad is winning, the good is losing. So we need to arm ourselves with the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita to make our good side stronger and make our bad side weaker. So always the good wins over the bad. That is the whole real purpose of studying the Bhagavad Gita, is so for one thing we know what is good, what is bad. The other thing is we are able to, as we read and study Bhagavad Gita, we are able to be more confident that good is really good and what is bad is really bad.
Well, is it just a matter of knowing it, being aware of it, or is there something to actually do about it?
Yes.
Yeah, if you can please speak about that. Is Bhagavad Gita expecting us to do something?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So just knowing what is good and what is bad is only the first step. The next step is having the confidence that the good, following the good is good for you and following the bad is bad for you. How much confident you are, the more you're confident that, okay, here is what is good, this is what I'm going to do. When the time comes of the battle in our mind, we would say, yes, this is the right thing to do, I'm going to do the right thing. And believe me, today, if we all decided to do the right thing at the right time, we will not need prisons, we will not need the whole law enforcement system. We can save all that money and put it towards the welfare of the human being.
What are some of these good things we're speaking about that is meant to be cultivated to bring about the good people in the society? What are some of those
Yes.
things practically?
Good, very good question. Uh, good is to understand what is our dharma. Dharma, as it is described in the Bhagavad Gita, the translation of dharma is not religion. The translation of dharma is duty. So every one of us, every human being has a duty. Not one duty, not two duties, several, so many duties. For example, person A, let's say he is a male named Mr. A. Mr. A has a duty towards his wife, a spousal duty. Mr. A has a duty towards his parents. Mr. A also has duty towards his children. Mr. A also has duties towards his siblings. And Mr. A also has a neighborly duty to the neighbors in the neighborhood that where he lives. He has a duty towards his friends at the church or the congregation that he's part of. He has a duty towards the nation that he is the citizen of. So there are so many duties. But what happens is sometimes these duties, they get you at the same time. They clash. That clashing of the duties in Sanskrit is called dharma sankat. When you are in a dharma sankat, that means your duties are clashing. You don't know which one to follow right now and which one not to follow. Meaning, which one has the higher priority than the other. So the examples are all over the scriptures that the higher duty for a king, for example, is his duty towards his subjects, towards his nation. We also have a duty of what class of society we are in. That is called Varna. If you are a Brahman, you belong to priestly class, you have a duty as a Brahman to fulfill. If you are a Kshatriya or a warrior class, you have a duty to fulfill as a warrior. If you are a Vaishya class or business class, you have a duty to be that way. Or if you are a Shudra class or labor class, you have duties that way. So then there are ashramas. There are 4 different ashramas. You could be a brahmachari, a bachelor. You could be a grahastha, a householder. You could be a vanaprastha, retired. Or you could be a sannyasi, which is renounced. So you have duties depending upon your varna. You have duties depending upon your ashrama. Then, higher than that is another aspect. That aspect is material and spiritual. We have material duties and we have spiritual duties. You may ask, what is the difference? What is material duty and what is a spiritual duty? The difference between a material duty and a spiritual duty is all of the material duties have a relation with this body that we reside in. See, the whole basis, foundation of the Bhagavad Gita is, first of all, to understand that we are not this body. We are a soul that is residing inside this body. So when we realize that we are actually a soul that is residing inside this body is completely temporary. Nobody who has ever taken birth on this earth has not died before. Never would it happen again in the future that we take a birth and we do not die. So that means we're temporary. But the only temporary thing about us, according to the Bhagavad Gita, is this material body. This material body is temporary. Inside this material body, which makes this material body conscious, that is soul. The soul is eternal. Nothing can ever happen to the soul. So, because we are not only a body, we are a soul residing inside the body and the body. So there is two. We have a body that we have duties towards, and we also have the soul that we have duties towards. The body is temporary. We're only going to have it for what? 20 more years, 50 more years, 100 more years. But it's temporary. But there is also no guarantees if we're going to have it for 2 more days. So it's a completely temporary situation. Whereas the soul, which is eternal, will have the existence after we leave this body. And it was in existence before the soul entered into this present body that we are residing in right now. So the question comes, what is more important? Your duty towards your material body, which is temporary, or your duty towards your soul, which is eternal?
But before you go further, the duties for the body, the needs of the body, is quite clear, is quite understood, the needs of the body. But you're speaking about duty towards the self, the soul. How do people in general know what that is? Because for most people, they don't really have they don't even know. They're not convinced that I'm something different from what I see in the mirror. So how do we go about being convinced that beyond providing the needs of the body, I have that duty towards the soul? How do we become convinced about that, or what that duty is?
Well, I think there are 2 questions here. One is that how do we realize that we actually have a soul? There are several different methods to prove and to realize that we are actually a soul. Because, now first thing, it's called common sense. Although the common sense is uncommonly found. Common sense says that the day I die, you will have this whole body laying right down there. The whole 150 pounds will be right there. And you will say, oh, this person has died. But that person you're talking about, and if you identify him with that body is still there. The whole 150 pounds. How can you call that body dead? The person has died because that person was a soul that was residing inside that body. Soon as that soul leaves that body, that person is dead. So, how can we say that the person was that what we could see in the mirror? What you could see in the mirror, you can bring the mirror down to him and show him the mirror. He's all there. So, common sense. Then there are other things. There is consciousness. Consciousness is if a body that has a soul in it, you hit it, it feels, it can hurt. Whereas a dead body does not feel anything. So a body that has a soul in it is conscious. It has consciousness. So consciousness is a sign, is a symptom of the presence of the soul. The other thing, there are studies called the NDE studies. That's called near death experiences. Several people, this is published studies everywhere, have been outside of their body in a near death experience and have come back into the body. And many of them report that when they went out of that body, usually happens at the operating table in a hospital, they were able to see the doctors performing whatever the procedure on their own body, and they were able to see that. And later on, they get into that body. This is called near death experiences. Anybody who is interested in finding out more about near death experiences can Google NDE or near death experiences, and there's plenty of them. And scientists are going a little further on confirming them by putting up a written message more than 10 feet away, 10 feet up into the operating room, and requesting people that if you have a near-death experience, go up and read what that paper says, and you come back and tell us. So there's more confirmations being done. Then there are OBEs, out of body experiences. Similarly, out of body experiences, people have left their bodies for a temporary period of time and have come in. A small example of a out of body experience is also a dream. When we're dreaming, sometimes we see ourselves walking down the road or playing with the friends and so on. That is kind of an out of body experience, but there are a lot more developed out of body experiences that people have had. And again, one can Google out of body experiences, and there's several listed. So all of these things, they go to prove that the soul and the body are two different things. Your next question was
The duties. How do you know?
the spiritual duties. Yes. You see, whatever we do, whatever a regular person today does, his whole day is wrapped around four things: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. These are all the four things that every animal is also doing. So, at the end of the day, all of our activities are around this material body. How to feed this material body, how to house it, how to clothe it, and how to engage various senses that this body has into enjoying those senses. Now, those are all, they're called material activities. Above and beyond the material activities are activities, first of all, these material activities are all done for the welfare of the body. Then, for the welfare of the soul, there are another set of activities that can be performed.
Before we continue, we have actually run out of time on this program, but we're going to continue this subject matter in another program. So, Akrura Prabhu, would like to thank you very much for being on the program, and we're going to continue this subject matter. I'm Rajarsi Das saying Hare Krishna, and do join us again next week for a continuing presentation.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama.